Hello, my networking friend. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday from the car. I'm actually getting ready to head out after a long doctor's appointment. But I didn't want to miss being able to connect with all of you live. So thanks. I see some people already watching. It's so good to see you here. So welcome to Networking Know How. This is our weekly live training to help you network more stress-free like we do in our networking online community. And today I've got a really good topic. It's kind of been a theme that I've been hearing a lot about in a lot of the conversations that I've been having and some of the new connection calls that I'm making, connecting with people from the event that I attended not that long ago. I think I might have mentioned in a previous live. So we're going to be talking about networking strategies to help you overcome imposter syndrome. So how do you tackle imposter syndrome with networking strategies? You might not even realize that you can. Many people might say, but I have imposter syndrome even to start networking. And that's okay. I'm going to make sure that you are able to actually feel more confident, get solutions for imposter syndrome, and recognize you are not on the island of alone, all with some of these very simple strategies that I'm going to share in today's live. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Make sure you get up in chat and let me know where you're watching from. Say hi. I love engaging with everybody, even from the inside of my car. So thank you so much for getting in chat. And for those watching on replay, I'm glad you're watching. Thanks for being here. Okay, if we have not yet connected yet, I'm Laura Morlando, the Stress Commando, and I am the founder and CEO of Down and Dirty Networking. We are a virtual online community that is 100% relational networking only. No 30-second commercials. We are all about having meaningful conversations to learn from and about each other to build lasting and authentic relationships. And so the tips that I'm going to share with you are things that we do inside of our community, but you can absolutely use it when you're networking out and about in your day, or maybe at more traditional transactional events. These tips will still work for you too, to make you elevate your game, enjoy networking, and not feel like it's so much of a chore. All right, so let's talk a little bit about imposter syndrome. So first off, if you've heard about it, then you know. If you haven't heard about it, you might have not experienced it yet, or maybe you have, you just didn't know what it was called. But if you've ever been, if you going into a room with all of these professionals and you get into the room and you're thinking, oh my gosh, look at all these people. They're all beautiful. They're all fit. They all look professional. I don't belong in this room. Or maybe you're walking and talking to somebody and you think that they're actually just amazing. And you're thinking, man, I feel like such an imposter sitting here saying, hey, I do this and talking about myself. I really don't feel all that confident. If you had that kind of an experience, then you've probably struggled with imposter syndrome. Or maybe you've gotten a new client, you're thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to deliver for this new client? Or you've gotten the new job or project and now you're thinking, what was I thinking? Am I even able to do this? All of those scenarios are actually imposter syndrome. And here's the thing, and here's where networking can really come into play. When you experience or have experienced imposter syndrome, it's very isolating. You feel like you're the only one. I don't know about you, but I always feel like I've got a spotlight on me and everyone can tell that I'm an imposter and they know how I'm feeling, and I get super self-conscious. And the more I'm under this spotlight, this pretend spotlight that I put on myself, the hotter it gets, the more, I start to sweat, my hands start to get clammy, and I'm just really concerned that everybody can see what's going on with me, that they know I'm an imposter too. Like they can see through the smile, through the facade, and they know that I'm an imposter. If this is resonating with you, you're not alone, because this is real. These are real things that go through the thing between your ears, right? I heard that it's a neighborhood you never want to walk alone. And when you're dealing with imposter syndrome, it's not the kind of friend you want escorting you through your mind in that moment. But here's what's so interesting. Most of us feel that we're being called out. We're the only ones experiencing it. So maybe we feel like we're on that island of alone with that big hot spotlight on us. Here's a little insider secret for you. Most everybody at some time or another has experienced imposter syndrome. You're not alone, my friend. You are absolutely not alone. And here's the other thing. you're probably going to experience imposter syndrome more than once. But here's how you can get through this and how you can make sure that you are taming that imposter syndrome. You're tackling it once and for all by utilizing your networking strategies. So you ready? All right, here you go. First up, acknowledge imposter syndrome. One of the things I love to do with relational networking is engage in questions versus telling. So in transactional, more traditional networking, you're more about selling and telling. Hey, my name is, buy my stuff. And you're just telling. In relational networking, it's having a more meaningful conversation. And one of our core values here at Down and Dirty Networking is to talk less, question more. And so I love questions. The introvert in me loves questions because I don't have to think about what to say, like a 30-second commercial or anything. I simply have to be curious and ask questions. And so one of the questions that's really great to ask is, hey, I'm curious, have you ever experienced imposter syndrome? And do you have any advice for someone like me who I just totally had that imposter syndrome situation, and I'm just looking for some advice? Is this something you've experienced before? Great question. Number one, the minute you put your own light on what you're dealing with, that pretend spotlight that you think you have on no longer matters. It's like you taking the spotlight off and saying, I'm not giving power to this spotlight. What I'm doing is I'm moving forward and I'm going to learn from somebody else. I'm going to hit an easy button and learn from other people. When you ask this question, when you are out and about networking, you can ask it at an event. You can ask it when you're talking to colleagues or clients, or even out and about in your day. You'll be surprised. This is a great question because people will probably go, oh my gosh, I have. So now you have common ground and they're going to realize they're not alone. And you just realized and proved to yourself that you're not on the island of alone. And then you get to dig deep and say, well, what's the strategy? What do you do when that happens? How do you move through that? And now you're having a very different conversation. You're having a very different conversation, a more meaningful one, by getting to the heart of imposter syndrome and learning someone's best practices versus, hey, how are you? What do you do? The typical questions that we ask when we're out and about networking, but unfortunately, they're very superficial. They're very much in the traditional and transactional space. So if you want to have a more meaningful conversation, ask questions, talk less, question more. And this is a really great one. So ask the question about imposter syndrome. If you're needing to reach out to people and it's been a while and you're like, oh my gosh, I have not been a good friend to my contacts in my network. Reach out to them and say, hey, I was just thinking about you. Curious what's new and exciting in your world. And then see if they respond. You can do this like in LinkedIn. And he goes, I've been really tackling imposter syndrome. Just curious, do you have any advice? Notice you're asking for advice. You're not asking for them to work for free. You're not asking for them to buy your stuff. One of the things that I try to not do to people is, let me pick your brain. That means I want free stuff from you and I don't value your knowledge and expertise to say, hey, charge me for this. So what I love about this question about imposter syndrome is it totally prevents that. It's like, hey, I'm just curious, what's your take on this? What's your perspective? What's your best practice for moving through imposter syndrome? Hey, I see some people watching. If you're watching live right now, I would love to, this is a legit question. I would love to hear your take on it. Do you ever experience imposter syndrome? What is your best tip for moving through it? Now, here's the networking strategy that I will tell you. If you happen to be in an event, especially an in-person event, or if you're in a virtual event and you've been broken out into breakout rooms, asking this question is going to open up the conversation. Everybody's going to get in on it. If you're in person, you're probably going to draw a crowd because people are going to be like, oh my gosh, this is such a great question. And so now you are seen as someone that is interesting and interested in what other people have to say. So this strategy actually hits on a lot of the different notes. And my new favorite saying is feed two birds with one stone. Because I kept saying kill two birds with one stone. And I was getting tired of killing birds, to be honest. And my good pod mate, I kept saying that. I'd pause. I goes, anyone know a better phrase? And I've asked that of several people. And one of my friends said, you know what? I say this. I feed two birds with one stone. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love that. So if you see me pause as I try to say that, I'm trying to really make that automatic. Feed two birds with one stone. Okay, so back to my strategy. Feed two birds with one stone. It's easy. You're going to be able to ask questions You do not, this is totally simple. You can totally do this. It takes the spotlight off of you. If you are feeling like an imposter, if you're feeling a little shy and you're lacking confidence, you're going to be able to just remove that, take ownership of this fear, this imposter syndrome. But now you're going to be able to control it because you're going to be asking for feedback and you're going to recognize you're not alone. And you're having a more meaningful conversation with everybody that you're having. So I hope this is helpful. At events, reach out through social media platforms or text somebody or call them on the phone and say, hey, you know what? It's been a while. I was just thinking about you. What's new and exciting with you? And I have just a really cool question I would love to ask you. And you ask. It's that simple. It doesn't expend a lot of energy and it allows you to have a more meaningful conversation like we love to do with relational networking here in Down and Dirty Networking. So I hope this was helpful. If so, give me a thumbs up or drop a comment or send me a DM. Let me know what your thoughts are on this because I'm really curious. I am working through imposter syndrome. And one of my best tips is what I just shared with you is to ask the question, ask other people. And what you find is when you're not alone, you can actually have a little bit more confidence. And the more you call it out, like, hey, I'm working through this, the less power it actually has. It's when you avoid it and you let it be, you let the imposter syndrome, the imposter, have the loudest voice in your head. That's where it becomes a little bit of a challenge, or at least for me it is. I don't know about for you, but at least for me. So I'm going to take my power back. I'm not going to listen to that imposter, and I'm going to talk to other people and ask questions. And I'm going to get into a meaningful conversation that's going to raise my vibrational energy. And in so doing, it's going to silence that imposter in my head. So that's the win-win, or the feed two birds with one scone strategy. You get networking, you get tips, and you silence the voice in your head that is being led by that imposter. So I hope, like I said, if this is helpful, let me know. I see a whole bunch of you watching live. I appreciate you allowing me the grace to come live from my car right after the doctor appointment. And luckily, I had enough light left. So hopefully I'm not completely dark in the live platform. All right, if you like this, great. I can't wait to hear from it. Can't wait to hear your strategies. Let's have a conversation about this. I really want to know. And stay tuned. We have a lot of different posts. Make sure that you're connected with Down and Dirty Networking on Facebook and on LinkedIn. I go live every Wednesday afternoon between 3:30 and 5:30-ish, unless I have a doctor's appointment like today. But I go live on all platforms, so you can check that out. But there's other posts to continue the conversation and to equip you with things to say throughout your day so that you can have a more relational networking, more meaningful conversation with your colleagues and everyone you interact with. I just so much appreciate you. I hope you have an amazing day, and I hope that you have an even better day tomorrow. And until we see each other again next Wednesday, happy networking.